Yo AK, this video has some long-term dynamic and static flexibility goals for you for both the hamstrings and the hip flexors. To start off here, for an example, the dynamic one that we're doing for the hip flexors is our high box lunge or the front foot elevated split squat. You know that right now we do this at a height about this, and we do it to be able to get a stretch in the hip flexors, but we want to build it down to a height that's like this at first, which is like a single staircase in height. The main difference being that that knee has to go further and further back out to stop touching the floor. We do not want the knee to ever touch the floor. And we eventually want to build it down to a height like this, where the heel's elevated off the floor, but we are doing it on flat ground. So as you can see, my knee still goes over my toes when I come down, hamstring to heels, torso upright, I'm squeezing the back glutes, that knee's just further out, and this means that we're diving it more into a front split. The corresponding static flexibility with this is the couch stretch, where the most basic version we do right now is like this on the floor, squeezing the glute, torso upright. A more advanced version is the toes being elevated onto an object whilst trying to push the hips down towards the floor. And then a more advanced version after that is keeping that position, but now we're trying to close the distance between the heel and the butt. We want to build up to this position eventually, and it should be easy for us to get into. For the hamstrings, a good dynamic one that we do right now is elephant walks. The elephant walks are when we get onto all fours and we bring two knees in and push one knee out. An example of making this a beginner level is starting with a high object. We can build down to a low object. This is like 2 staircases high. And then build down to lower it again. This is like 1 staircase high. And eventually we want to be able to do this with hands on the floor, relatively close towards our feet. So something like this. But ideally we want those toes even closer to our hands than this. Being able to straighten those legs out fully towards the floor. The static flexibility goal in conjunction with that is just a static hamstring stretch. So we put that front foot onto an object, keep the toes pulled right back, try and straighten out that leg. And first off, we could start off with something at waist height. Then we could build up to something like this, where it's about belly button to mid-chest height. And then we could eventually build that up in the future towards being about 45 degrees in the air or about chest to shoulder height. That would be a good long-term goal for us to get. With some tenacity, you could achieve all the highest standards in these videos within about 4 to 6 weeks. You should be stretching every